Hello, two-shot fans, and today we're here with an instructional video on color grading. Contrast versus curves. What's the difference between that and contrast? Well, there's lots of difference. We're going to learn. We can isolate things in totally different ways.
Contrast, it does a good job of adding a fixed amount of contrast to the image. But it is not very flexible when compared to the curves tool. Curves, typically this will give you superior results over contrast.
Walk away, bitch.
Why should you use curves instead of just run-of-the-mill contrast? Tree. So curves, that's RGB curves, red, green, blue curves, or specifically in this case, Luma curves. Now Luma, what do we have about Luma? Do we know anything about Luma? The luminosity curve. It's a curve tool you've seen before, but instead of adjusting RGB values, it adjusts the luminosity tones. So your bright highlights, your dark shadows, and your mid-tones. This is Color Director 6 as part of Power Director 16. Now in this first one we're looking at, on the right, has a bit more contrast-like look, and that is with curves and no contrast. Using S-Log3, here's how I use some curves to adjust the tone of the skin. We actually use humans and mannequins in this. On the left mannequin, I have contrast turned up here, but on the right clip, it's at 0. So we just go up to Color Director. Now I've made some minor adjustments. Obviously I've adjusted the hue and the saturation, the red channel and green channel, all that stuff has been left alone, but the RGB, the Luma curve, you can see I've changed here. You can see most of the information here exists from here near the darkest parts to right in around the middle, and then it goes way down on the highlights. When I lower the highlights, the window in the background gets darker. Now let's go back. Let's bring this arc in the middle down. Let's see how the mid-tones change. Boom. More contrast. Beautiful. Now I'm using my A7 III, that's a Sony, and with 8-bit footage, you got to be a little careful if you push it too far, because that can break up the skin tones.
I love you.
Learning is fun.
Now I turned the contrast on the left clip way up to 142, so I had to readjust the right clip. On the second example, you can see how I've added more keyframes and pushed the curve further to achieve this look. The left face seems more flat though.
Sunlight, man, we gotta film this shit.
Jazz is stupid!
Now in this one, the jam in the face clip, I adjusted contrast and tones on the left one, and using the Luma and RGB curves for the right one. The first one of these jam in the face clips is raw. The second one, we had added in some color for both of them, but only adjusting the contrast on the left one, and only using RGB and the Luma curve for the right one. Notice all the keyframes again, so you can make lots of adjustments. I like the hazier look you can notice in the eyes. I almost wanted to leave that, but let's clear the eyes up a bit and sharpen the contrast with the curve a bit more. Then we can keep going along these examples here. Bit more brightness there. So you notice all applied effects outside of Color Director are ignored. That's like brightness or sharpness used in the basic Power Director color adjustment. This is basically how we had the second one, but we've just changed the shadows just a little bit. Here I decided to add RGB curves, but not Luma, to the first clip, and you can see they look nearly identical. The left one has brighter highlights and almost seems a little sharper. It's starting to look more the way I want it. Okay, this is from my unhealthy food video. Now, first I added these effects plugins, New Blue Video Tune-Up Plus and New Blue Tint. The Video Tune-Up Plus gives us a simple way to use contrast center and contrast, which I lowered here to balance out the highlights, particularly on the subject's face. I also brought down the brightness With the tint, I've used two of these effects plugins in order to blend one which uses more red overlay and one with more green. It comes out almost the same, but gives the color more depth. And I have the film gamma turned up to 79, which, as you can see, increases the shadows. Now for both sides, I have the blue channel adjusted. But after that, on the left, the tones and contrast have been increased. But on the right, just the Luma curve has been used. Like if I take it off, everything gets way brighter. On the second example, I changed the saturation and lightness to give the right clip more of an orange look. But it was mainly the shadows and split toning that did this. I also like to add a bit of sharpness, and to smooth it out, you can use video denoise. I use them in both here.
Let's see what that looks like.
Now look at this one. This is me eating noodles here. Now the contrast is actually up to 69 here in the color director. No curves though. Mix contrast and tones and curves onto the right clip. Okay, so that's enough here. We're gonna show some clips, and that should be good. Subscribe to my channel and have a good lunch or whatever time it is. Yeah, so make sure to subscribe to my channel. Hello, Two Shot fans, and today we're here with an instructional video on color grading, contrast versus curves. Or what are curves? Is that something someone just died out there? I'm going blind from the light that's in my eyes. It's f***ing insane. It's going to be a little more difficult to see the difference in the skin tones on a mannequin than a human, of course. Timeline mode. So we can get a sync. We'll play something with some volume. Tree.
I love you. I love you.
So what we want to have is nice, smooth shadow to highlight roll off. So darker tones. I watched this video called
Love you.